Speaking of reliability, a podcast with good friends talking with you about reliability engineering topics. Welcome to Speaking of Reliability. This is Fred Schenkelberg.
And this is Greg Hutchins. Good morning, Fred. How are you doing?
Hey, pretty good, Greg. I'm doing well. And I'm all excited. One of my friends in the discussion group that I participate in weekly, it's a live, we get together on Zoom and talk once a week about making cheese, home cheese making. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that on the podcast before or not, but over the last 4 or 5 years, I've been making cheese at home. And the woman that organized the group this year is the Boulder County County Fair superintendent for the home cheese making category. I don't know what they call it, show, competition, whatever, at the county fair. So she invited all of the people that have taken her classes and are part of this discussion group and stuff to submit entries, send cheese to Boulder County, Colorado, and have it entered into a county fair. So I don't have to go. I can do it virtually, but except that cheese has to show up. So I raided my cheese cave and said, well, what do I have that's any good? And so I have found a couple of different pieces, and I'm read the rules and then going through the directions and getting everything packaged up and getting prepared to send cheese through the mail and get it there on time. And at one point she commented, and for participating, if you get an award-winning cheese in this competition, you will be the proud owner of a Boulder County Fair ribbon of some sort. And I think there's 5 places altogether for each category. And what am I going to do with a ribbon? If she sent me some ingredients, some really good sheep milk or something like that, I'd be pretty excited because they are showing sheep there and they could be milking. So if she sent me a couple gallons of sheep milk, I would be super excited about that. And she said, no, we'll send in ribbons for the winners. And I'm like, okay. But it made me think about, and we do professional development, and a big part of Shendo reliability is to support people wanting to learn, an individual detail or task or procedure, or improve the viewpoint on how to deal with reliability topics and related fields. And there's tons of information that people could self-study, and there's courses that if you want to get it more organized, and, stuff like this podcast, which is intended to get people to think about a range of different things that may or may not be in their daily, event or purview. It's all part of professional development, and we don't hand out ribbons.
That's a problem.
I don't know.
That's a problem. Because we live for ribbons. We live for recognition. We live for badges. We live for
the accolades.
Stanford.
Yeah, the accolades and the recognition and resume fillers, and it's something I just never really understood. And I've been fortunate. I have a great resume, great background, and all that other stuff, and I have great opportunities. Yet I didn't go to Stanford because it was a great school to go learn statistics at. I went to it because it was the closest one nearby and my company would pay for it.
So, first of all, that story about cheese is disheartening because I love cheese. And unfortunately, I also got gout. And gout is a cause of cheese. Cheese is a cause
related
of gout.
to it. Oh no, just fats and stuff like that.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's
bummer.
Right. So, but anyway, let's get on tack again. You went to Stanford. You went to military academy, and you probably have sweatshirts that say military academy or Stanford.
No, I don't.
The big red tree from Stanford?
No, I don't. I've never bought swag ever. any of those schools. And even when my kids went to nice schools, I never bought a bumper sticker. My kid is going to wherever. To me, it kind of misses the point, and it propagates a mythology that too many people are chasing the ribbon and not chasing the ability to use the knowledge they are earning where they go. I can learn physics at a community college as well as at MIT if I apply myself and want to learn it and figure out how to use it and making decisions and doing things and so on. And unfortunately, the way our system seems to work is that if you study physics, you have to go to MIT to even get your resume past the first hurdle, which is independent of whether the person actually knows anything. I've met some really idiot people from MIT that walk in the door and say, I went to MIT, you have to hire me. I said, no, I don't. What's 2 + 2? And they can't answer that, kind of thing. It's like, I would much rather work with somebody that actually knows what they're doing. And when I was at the academy, there's this notion called a ring knocker, a person that gets their class ring, and they would knock it on the table to remind who they're talking to that they went to the academy and expect preferential treatment from it, independent of whether they're capable of doing anything useful in the world or not. And I think that's just fundamentally wrong.
So let me sort of carve out what you're saying. When you say fundamentally wrong, what is wrong about what?
So the system of, let's say I went to your alumni, and that's really the only thing that caught your eye on my resume, and I got the interview. Right. Now, resumes and interviews aren't really a great process to find out a good hire. I don't think there's a whole nother discussion there. There's better ways to go about doing that, I think. But the idea is that it got me in the door just because I went to a school that happened to coincide with one you thought was a good school. Second, if the interview is, regaling about the times on the quad back in school days and doesn't explore my capability at all, and I get the offer, to me, it skews the hiring process to a bias, and it's a justification of, good students come from MIT. Well, good students come from Puget Sound University too. But we don't ask those questions. We don't probe how people actually use the information that they learned at whatever institution they went to, or whatever book they read, or whatever thing like that. That's where it then encourages students to go to the top universities, and it becomes very competitive. And being very competitive looks good, I'm using air quotes here, in the eyes of hiring people, because it's so competitive, it must only have the best students. All of those things aren't necessarily true. And I always give PhDs a hard time. And I think you're one also at one point in your life. Is like, yeah, you know a whole lot about this one little thing, yet you don't know anything about what you're doing. And you can't explain what your PhD thesis was about to me. So it's like, how well did you actually do? And other people take that same education and leverage it into their ability or capability or interest in learning and continuing to learn and share what they know and add value with what they know and do and so on. I think the system is focused on the ribbon, whereas it should be focused on your ability to use the knowledge you have. And I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think there's some people that go to great schools and do a great job. I don't think that's wrong. It's when that gets divorced and that becomes the reason people are getting the ribbon is just to get the ribbon. Then they think, and sometimes they are, on easy street. They get the interview, they get the job, and they muddle through it and they do just fine. Whereas somebody that has a great education at an unnamed school and really as good at what they're doing, they're 3 steps behind, and they may or may not ever catch up.
So, do you want a different perspective on this?
Well, that's why I'm talking to you, Greg. I always get that different perspective.
Okay, I'm sort of the token outlier for these podcasts. And I'll tell you a couple stories. As a manager, and I've talked about that before. I was not a good manager. I was a death march manager, and I didn't give out ribbons. I expected the people that I hired to know their job. We paid them sometimes a lot more money than I was making, and I was their boss. Mm-hmm. And I expected above exemplary performance. This whole thing about ribbons basically is about branding. It's about who you are and what you project, whether it's right or wrong, whether it's, what do you want to call it? It's, whether it's worthwhile, whether there's value in what you project. It's still illusion. It's still an illusion, but it's still important in terms of people. People want that personal branding.
Well, some do. I disagree that people want it. I think it's one of many motivations people have for somebody that takes pride in doing a good job internally, doesn't look for a ribbon, and they feel kind of awkward when somebody hands them an award of some sort. While there's other people, and it may be a majority, that say, I'm doing a good job and I really appreciate it, and I'm motivated by the community saying, hey, you're doing a great job. Here's a ribbon for you.
But the ribbon basically is in some ways performative. It's aspirational.
It can be. No, I definitely agree. I agree with that. I agree that it's like me with this cheese contest type thing. To me, it's an opportunity for me to go in front of some people that are trained judges of cheese quality and cheese interest or whatever, and get feedback from it. That's what I'm looking for, is the feedback. The ribbon's
which is aspirational.
Right. For the feedback, not the ribbon. I want the feedback of their notes, their tasting notes. And there's a whole form that I understand what it all means, but I don't know where my cheese by somebody that's trained at doing that, where I sit.
But they still go together.
Yeah, they do go together.
So, part of this thing in a company, when you're looking at the branding or what we call brand equity, and by the way, it's the same, applies to a person. When you look at the balance sheet in the company, property, plant, and equipment is X, but the brand equity can be 100X, or in some cases 1,000X.
Yeah, or it could be negative in some cases.
Yeah. So a friend of mine applied and got accepted to the world's best company, ostensibly. And part of the interview process was they actually told her, both interviewers told her, this is the best company in the world to work for, probably one of the most valuable. They both said, don't believe the bullshit, right?
Yeah.
You're going to get it. You're going to get a job. We waived a lot of requirements, but do your job, do the best you can. But
and then we'll judge you later. Yeah.
And we'll judge you later. All the other stuff, which is branding, performance, and all the media stuff, is all hype.
Yeah.
Focus on the job, get it done, you'll do well.
Yeah. Now, I think those managers, as hiring folks, were a bit enlightened in that regard. And they recognizing that we want performance, and the best way to do that is give you 6 months here, and then we'll figure it out.
That's right. That's right. I want to go back to the thing that probably started this conversation, and I'll try to wrap this thing up. I think ribbons are hugely important. You need ribbons in a shendo or sendo. You correct me in the pronunciation. It's a shendo.
The shendo is, as Enrico would tell us. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I've been working on it for over a year. Don't worry about that. It's still spelled the same.
It'll take me 10 times longer to get the pronunciation.
Yeah.
Yes, I do think that ribbons are important. The difference in your maturation, Fred, is that before and now you're against ribbons. I think you need to develop ribbons for your great courses that you have.
Well,
they did Six Sigma, they did it in Lean. We need ribbons to recognize people's accomplishments for learning your material.
Well, I understand what you're saying, and it's the hard part for me, and making it a game is that I don't want it to be a game. I want people to take the course because you want that knowledge, you want those insights from that instructor, and you plan on using it. It's of no value to you or to anybody in the society if you take the course and you get a certificate, frame it, put it on the wall, and expect a pay raise. It doesn't work that way to me.
But if you can't get people engaged in reliability, it's like that old quote: if a tree falls and nobody hears it.
Yeah.
We need to have people engaged in quality.
Well, I guess it limits my market. And then once a person does sign up for the course, is that if we hammer home the concept of, you actually have to use this to make it useful.
And then you develop a practicum.
Yeah. Well, the idea of, one experiment we've been after for a year now is with the webinars, right?
Yep.
And they are now on a system that if you complete the webinar, if you listen to watch the recording or listen to the recording of the webinar, there's a quiz afterwards. And if you pass the quiz, I'll come back to the details of this quiz in a moment, but if you pass the quiz, it will magically auto-populate your name and the webinar title in a suitable for framing certificate, a ribbon that you can download or print and use it as and the primary reason I did it was that if you spend an hour on some topic in a webinar, the professional societies allow you to claim that hour as professional development, and it's part of the documentation process of it. And so I thought, all right, well, we have the technology, we can do that, and it's accepted by ASQ and other professional societies and as a hour's worth of professional development. And you can do so many per year and so on. So that's the primary reason. And I thought that, well, if it's really just a certificate, will that motivate a lot of people to take it? And it's free, right? You can sign up for the course or sign up for the webinar or watch the webinar and take the quiz, and there's no fees or anything like that. You got to be registered so that we know how to spell your name, that kind of stuff. But the quiz, here's the thing I thought was interesting on the quiz. I looked at a handful of other sites that do recorded webinars, and then how do you prove that you did the webinar? Well, they put software timers on it that you had to watch at least 50 minutes. It had to be top of screen on your computer. So you couldn't be checking email and do the webinar because then it would turn off and say, well, you weren't paying attention. We have the technology to do that. It was at top of screen for some percentage or significant percentage of time. And then there might be a handful of, questions about the webinar that, technical things, how many topics were in it and stuff like that. Another spot did it, using the technology and some quiz type stuff to set it all up. Well, I got 200 webinars or pretty close to 200 webinars. I'm not going to write a quiz for each one of them. So what I did is I wrote 2 questions. Did you watch the webinar? Period. Yes, no. If you say no, then you don't get a certificate. And second, what did you learn? It's an open-ended question. Write your comments in and it gets sent over to us. You have to write something. And in the directions, it basically says that if anybody asks us whether you actually did this seminar or not, I look at your question, and right on that question form is a reminder about the engineering, whatever engineering field we're in. We all abide by a code of ethics, and you tell the truth. So I remind people that we're bound by being trustworthy adults, and we have a code of ethics in our field. So I trust you. If you say you did watch it, then you did. And the second part is that if the comments are insightful about what they learned and how they're going to use it and so on, it's a pretty good piece of evidence that they actually consumed the material and internalized it. Whereas about half are, yep, I watched it, or good video, or other nonsensical things that really don't address the heart of the question. And so if somebody asks me, did they watch it? I'll send them your comments. You make the judgment whether they watched it or not. And the other piece out of it is that, I mean, we get on the order of 1,000 visitors to the site per day. And there's probably 10 people per day that are in the webinars area and looking at recordings and stuff like that. And one a week, so maybe 1 out of 100 people actually go through the process of getting the certificate, which to me is, I don't emphasize the ribbon. I make it available for people that want it for their recertification stuff. Yet there's 10 times as many people viewing the webinars and spending time on those things and not getting ribbons than there are people that watch or don't watch the seminar or the webinar and then still print a ribbon. So I'm not sure. There's my evidence that we tried gaming on this, but I think you're going to probably counter this with, that's just the way the site is set up. It's you do it for the learning. You don't do it for the ribbon.
Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts. You've spent 25 minutes trying to justify your position, Fred.
Yeah.
And I know we're reaching the end of the podcast. I think we need to reward behavior. We need to be aspirational. We need to have something that moves people in a direction that rewards the person, the participant, as well as you, the developer, because there has to be something in it for you. And a ribbon, certificate, or certification are all good. Sometimes it works. Well, I think most of the time it works.
Yeah. People
want recognition.
Well, maybe I should add, a LinkedIn badge that somebody completed 10 in a series, or, other course stuff. It's because right now we do it, it's a PDF, and it's harder to post that. Not difficult, but it's harder to post. If I made it simpler to add to your resume or simpler to add to your profile, we have the technology to do that too. Well, sounds like more experiments going forward here, Greg. You got to convince me with hard data here.
Okay. We want to wrap this thing up?
Yeah, sure. It's, if you're listening to this, are you chasing ribbons, or are you chasing honest feedback or knowledge that you can use? Is it, and this might be a rhetorical question, what motivates you, right? What is it that gets you out there to do the professional development? Is it meet the minimum requirement, or is it because you need to learn something to solve a problem in front of you, or vice versa? So I'm still arguing for my point here, Greg. But the idea is, what's your position on this? What do you think about this topic? If there's something we could do at Ascendo that would help you learn more about all the intricacies and all the stuff we have available in reliability engineering and all of these related fields, let us know what would work for you to get you onto this course or a webinar or to whatever. Head over to Ascendo. See, I'm still working on it, Greg. AscendoReliability.com /go/SOR. You can find a couple of ways to get in touch with us. Greg and I and the other hosts are available through LinkedIn and our About pages. So plenty of ways for you to get in touch. I don't know. So you going to send me a ribbon for wrapping up after, our show?
I first of all, I took a deep sigh. I think ribbons are good. Life is all about ribbons. And just think, from the first day that we live and the last day we die, it's all about ribbon chasing. So anyway, with that, Fred, it's been another fun date.
All right. Thanks, Greg. I knew I'd get some response from you on this one. That's for sure. All right. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care.
You bet, buddy. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Thanks for listening to Speaking of Reliability. We invite you to join the conversation If you have a question or a topic that you think we should discuss in a future show, please let us know. You can find a comment box below the episode show notes, or just leave a note as part of a review on iTunes.